Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Looking forward to a good meeting tonight. So this is a meeting of the Cabinet, for those of you who are watching online. We're not expecting the fire alarm to go off tonight, and if it does, please leave everything and follow the exit signs on the Peace Hill side of the building, exit by the Peace Hill door, and assemble in St Mary's Passage. Members, if you're not speaking, then please make sure you switch off your microphone so that we've got the right person being picked up by the live stream. Okay, a couple of announcements before we start today. So last week saw two relevant government consultations being launched. One of them is on a proposal for a centrally led development corporation, and the other is on local government reorganisation. Without going into too much detail on either of those at this point, they are both very significant for the future of our area. So if you're watching this, then please do have a look at those. They're on the gov.uk website. Please do get in touch with your councillors with your views about them. These are really important issues for the future of our area and the future development of Cambridge and surrounding villages and countryside. So do have a look at those and you'll surely be hearing more about them. One other small point, I sent a letter to the Mayor of Minneapolis in light of the recent events that have been going on there, just to give our solidarity, and they've given an initial response just to say we appreciate the support during these challenging times. Okay, so I'd like to begin the meeting by asking everyone to introduce themselves and state their portfolio. So I'm Councillor Cameron Holloway, I'm the leader of the council. Councillor Wade, would you like to go next?
Hello, yes, I'm Rachel Wade, Deputy Leader of the Council.
Okay, Councillor Bird.
Councillor Bird, and I'm Cabinet Member for Housing.
Councillor Smart.
Councillor Smart, Cabinet Member for Nature, Open Space and City Services.
Councillor Smith.
I'm Simon Smith, I'm the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources.
Councillor Thornborough.
Hello, I'm the Cabinet Member for Planning and Transport.
Councillor Nestor.
Councillor Dr. Antoinette Nestor, Cabinet Member for Culture, Economy and Skills. Thank you.
Councillor Anna Smith.
Councillor Anna Smith, Cabinet Member for Communities. Apologies for being late. The traffic is very bad this evening.
Thank you very much. Okay, and then we also have okay, well, on the first item, which is apologies for absence, we have no apologies for absence. We are waiting for, I think, for, do we have an apology, Councillor Smith?
Councillor Todd Jones is parking and will be here shortly.
Excellent, thank you. And Councillor Rosie Moore, we're also expecting shortly. Okay, declarations of interest. Any members have any declarations of interest? Councillor Simon Smith.
I'm a member of the KIP board.
Thank you. Councillor Bird.
I'm a board member of KIP as well.
Thank you. KIP is the Cambridge Investment Partnership, it's a joint venture between the City Council and Hill. Councillor Nestor.
I'm a trustee for the Museum of Cambridge.
Thank you. Anyone else? You can also make declarations as things arise if needed. Okay, so the third item is the minutes. Please can members indicate if they're happy to accept the minutes from the last meeting as a true and accurate record. In fact, we've got two sets. We've got the 13th of January 2026 and the 16th of December 2025. Can you just do a show of hands to show if you're happy? Yeah, okay, lovely. All right, item 4, public questions. We do have one public question today. That's from Mr. William Bannell, who I believe is online with us today. Thank you for coming. So, Mr. Bannell, your question has been published and it's been shared with the Cabinet in advance of this meeting. And so we don't need you to read out the initial question. It's there on the screen. You'll get a response from Councillor Simon Smith, and then after that you'll have 1 minute for a supplementary question. Okay, all right, Councillor Simon Smith, would you like to respond?
So if Cabinet members would like to check their diaries and respond to Mr. Bannell, you could do that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Okay, Mr. Bannell, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yeah, well, not so much of a question, just to iterate the point that, I've sent this invitation out to you all, so I'm trying to be as methodical and systematic as I can, trying to go through every of the motions that I can think of, really, to make you all completely aware of what it is that I'm asking, what we're doing at the Tourist Information Centre. And you, as the Cabinet, of course, are very important decision makers, and this kind of distance that's existed between us, and this, you need to be able to know what's going on around you before you can really say that you're making decisions properly about Cambridge or for the best interest of Cambridge. And so, yeah, come down and speak to us. Come and visit us in the Tourist Information Centre. We can answer any questions you have. We can explain what we've set up, how it works, how it can be funded sustainably and affordably, and the real benefit that it brings to the town, the people, the visitors, and the council itself. And so, yeah, that's my essential message, I suppose, is just to say, designing a guild hall without a tourist information centre would be a huge mistake. If you think about going through this thing without making provision for a tourist information centre, it would be a mistake.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to have to thank you. Thanks very much for your message, and thank you for the invitation. Councillor Smith, would you like to add anything?
There wasn't a question, so I can't answer. Non-question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming along. Okay.
All right.
So item 5 is our first substantive item. This is the Community Infrastructure Levy draft charging schedule. So this is going to be introduced by Councillor Katie Thornborough. Would you like to introduce the item, please?
Thank you very much. So I'm bringing this report to Cabinet recommending that we launch a public consultation on a new Community Infrastructure Levy, or CIL, for Cambridge. So simply put, it's a fixed charge that developers must pay when they build new homes or commercial spaces. The money raised is pooled together to fund the essential infrastructure like transport, community facilities and green spaces that our growing city needs. While neighbours like Huntingdon and Peterborough already have this system, Cambridge currently relies on Section S106 agreements, which are negotiated site by site. Moving to CIL will secure more funding and it will speed up the planning process. So why are we doing this? We considered introducing CIL in the past, but it was paused to see if the national government would replace it with a different system. But in 2024, the government confirmed that they would not scrap CIL, and this has given us the opportunity to rethink whether we should proceed with it or not. So crucially, there is a funding gap for transport issues on some of our projects. And the Greater Cambridge Partnership has identified that we do not have enough funds to deliver all the necessary transport improvements. So if we introduce CIL, we will have a more reliable way to help close that gap and ensure developers pay their fair share towards the city's wider needs. So at the moment, we only have S106, which is the contributions that we get through the planning system, but it is slow. When we negotiate these legal agreements, they sometimes delay the final planning application quite significantly. Sometimes, almost a year can go past until these are actually in place. And they actually can be quite restrictive about where they're actually spent. So the benefits of CIL is that it is a fixed, non-negotiable item that developers will have to take into account. So they will know exactly right from the beginning of their project and allow for it. So consultants will be able to, when they're working on the design and setting a budget, it can be factored in right from the very beginning. And then it is quite flexible as well. So unlike S106, this money can go into a central pot and we can spend it where it is needed most, rather than just where the buildings are happening. We think that this will actually be much faster delivery for the funds that we need. We don't have to negotiate for every penny. We can grant planning permission faster, and we can get the buildings built and jobs and places for jobs sooner. So how much people will have to pay? It will only be on commercial, it will not be residential. And one of the reasons why we're going to consultation is because we must consult on the costs that we're proposing and the mechanism. So for offices and R&D, it would be £175 per square metre. For student accommodation, it would be £60 per square metre. Shops and restaurants, £50, and industrial units, £35. So the next step, if the Cabinet agree, would be to go to consultation for 4 weeks, starting on the 16th of February to the 16th of March. And then I think that would give us time to do some final considerations about how we work with neighbourhoods and how we put in place what is funded before the end of the year. So I think that's the timetable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thornborough. Okay, any comments or questions from Cabinet members on this? Councillor Nesta.
Thank you, Councillor Thornborough. That's actually a very good proposal. Just have a quick question. So actually two. So for the commercial properties, will be any size, like as long as it's commercial? That would be the first question. And the second one is, what will happen to Section 106? Will this be on top of Section 106, or will it be replaced? Thank you.
Yes, so this would be, we will keep S106 because that is needed to provide specific community and social value to each individual site. And it's very specific what might be needed through S106. We absolutely still need that. These figures will be for the new accommodations as I outlined. And when the SIL money comes in, there will be a process of deciding how that money is spent, whether it is pooled with other sites for more general infrastructure improvements. But there will be an aspect of negotiating with communities as well.
Thank you. Councillor Anna Smith.
Thank you, and I'm very much in favour of holding developers to account and ensuring that they are paying their fair share, and I think this is really important, but I just want to unpick a little bit more about what SIL can do that S106 can't. So I wonder if you could tell me a bit more about the benefits to our communities that would come from SIL, and also what the planning team is doing and could do to ensure that it's our communities that are having that say in how that SIL is spent.
So the SIL will apply to every single project, and at the moment many projects do not have an S106 agreement. They just tend to be the very significant or larger sites where we can negotiate S106. But this SIL will apply to every single site of the forms that we've been listed. So not if it will be applied every single site. So that means there will be some infrastructure money coming in through every single development, and it's not onerous, and we have had very careful advice about the level that we can charge, but that's for the consultation as well. When the money comes in, there will be a process to consider how it is best spent, but it also depends where the project money, where it comes in from. So if there is a parish or a neighbourhood forum, a percentage of the funding will be spent in those areas, and those local communities, the parish or the neighbourhood forums, will make a decision about how the funding is spent. But there will be a contribution from every single project going into what's needed for the city. But the planning service has decided that this is the right thing that we should be doing because of we need the contribution from all of the developers. But it's part of the ongoing engagement that the planning service does with the communities. And I just want to take the opportunity to say that the planning service has engaged with young people to such an extent and communities to such an extent that it is a joint winner of a global prize. And it's called the Inspire Future Generations. And it's to recognise and celebrate outstanding initiatives, organisations who are bridging the gap between the built environment and young people. So we're working really hard to work with young people and their families and bring them into the conversations. And I think this moving towards SIL, that will lead to further engagement with people and investment in their communities. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Porrer, would you like to respond on behalf of the Scrutiny Committee?
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, we didn't call this to scrutiny because obviously at this point it's going to consultation, so it will remain on the forward plan for when we come back. Could I just check with Councillor Thornborough, point of information? It is liable on residential, I think, isn't it, on page 198? Because I think you said it wasn't, but it is liable on residential. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, the Scrutiny Committee will keep it on the forward plan for future reference when it comes back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Simon-Smith.
So the Shared Planning Service has had the opportunity to introduce SIL for some time. Now it's finally risen to this opportunity. What are the challenges that it faces to deliver it?
Yes, so back in 2014, there was a consultation and I think it was almost ready to go ahead and it didn't. And because there was changes in planning legislation, and I think you might remember there was a discussion about an infrastructure levy that the planning service had to consider all of the implications of that, and we worked within our ability to ensure that we were ready for the infrastructure levy as much as possible, and there was changes again, and finally they decided not to go ahead with the infrastructure levy and confirm that the SIL arrangement is something that's in place and can go ahead. But I think this actually helps show how on the ball our planning service is, where we have to work with the changes in planning legislation and what is coming to this area time and time again. And the planning service doesn't panic, it reviews carefully and gathers evidence to ensure that what is put in place is best for the people of Cambridge and the residents, and the service becomes stronger and better and more experienced for all of those changes that have had to be considered. And I think the planning service is now in the best possible place to deal with whatever comes in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Bennett, you've got your hand up online. Just to clarify, you've got one question in the meeting, so are you sure you want to use it now rather than on the budget? That's fine if you do, but just checking.
Absolutely.
Okay, lovely.
And my question unfortunately comes in a few parts, so I'll get it out as quickly as possible. The Community Infrastructure Levy regulation was introduced in 2010. It's now 2025. So, as you say, SCDC has had a levy in force for some time. I'm aware that less than half UK planning authorities have CIL, and that is down to concerns over the ease of which it can be avoided. So my two questions are, have the concerns about avoidance of CIL been one of the factors that have held the planning service off proceeding with the CIL plan, and what steps do you intend to take to counter CIL avoidance, which I am advised by people who know far more about this than me, is rife in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you.
But I'll make some comments and then I'll hand over to Stephen Kelly. So South Cambridgeshire District Council don't run SIL. But my experience with SIL is East Cams do run SIL. And before I was a councillor, and I was in my architectural practice, I did a lot of work in East Cams, and it was very straightforward how it was set out and what was appropriate to what type of projects and what circumstances warranted allowance for SIL. So my experience is that as long as it was quite clear and you could actually decide whether it was relevant or not and allow for it very, very early on. So I wasn't aware of avoidance, but I think people want to avoid costs, so they were looking for clarity about whether their projects were included or not. And some residential projects were not included. That was quite clear. But I'll hand over to Director of Planning, Stephen Kelly.
Thank you. In respect of the issue about the delay in implementing SIL, as Councillor Thornborough highlights, there have been a number of regulatory changes and indeed statements made by various governments over time, including the provisions for the introduction of a levy. The current government advised that they weren't proposing to bring that forward last year, and immediately following that we began efforts to introduce this SIL because it's related to strategic transport needs of Greater Cambridge. Your point about avoidance, in many respects at the moment, strategic transport contributions are a casualty of the Section 106 process and the SIL regulations, which require the County Council or ourselves as the planning authority to demonstrate that a development cannot proceed without contributions towards that infrastructure. So what we're witnessing at the moment is unfortunately quite widespread avoidance of strategic transport contributions through the Section 106 regime, and it's that that's prompted us to bring this provision in. There are explicit enforcement provisions in the SIL regulations that allow the local planning authority to serve stop notice effectively on development that has failed to pay upfront upon commencement SIL receipts. And there is therefore then an associated enforcement regime around that process in the event that people continue to avoid it. I think where SIL has been in the headlines is that it has been blamed as being responsible for viability issues that are holding up developments across the country. And so you will have seen potentially a narrative in London about emergency provisions setting aside SIL coming out in the last few months. We've set the SIL rates carefully with our viability consultants to make sure that that isn't that the SIL rates that we're proposing, which are just for strategic infrastructure, are affordable in the context of development values, but also affordable in the context of other Section 106 obligations, including affordable housing, that we apply to those eligible developments. So the consultation, I'm sure, will elicit a range of views, and we'll be bringing those back to the council for consideration before we take it forwards. But hopefully that clarifies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would just like to ask, will we be able to afford any staff resources for enforcement?
Sorry, Councillor Bennett, you did have your 2 questions already, actually, which was cheeky already, so no third one, sorry. But thank you very much. Okay, any further comments or questions on this item? Councillor Simon-Smith.
Can I just thank James Fisher for his inputs into this and bringing this forward to the officers present. And I think we should record our appreciation for the efforts, a considerable amount of work, and it's a huge step for Greater Cambridge in securing the funding for vital transport infrastructure. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Thornborough, anything you want to say to sum up, or are you happy? All right, we will move to the vote then. So the recommendation is on page 27 of your agenda pack. It's recommended that Cabinet authorises a public consultation on the draft CIL charging schedule and associated documentation. Is that agreed? Yeah, that's agreed. Lovely. Okay, thank you. All right. Item 6 is the budget setting report and medium-term financial strategy 2026 to 27. So just a couple of notes before we start. Jodie Etherington, our Chief Finance Officer, unfortunately is not able to be here, but we would like to say thank you so much to him for the huge amount of work he has done on this report. Matthew Fernandez-Graham is here to step in. Thank you very much, Matthew. And we've also got Jane Wilson, our Chief Operating Officer, and we have Ben Binns, Assistant Director of Development. So we have plenty of officers to answer any technical questions, which is great. Thank you. Also, again, obviously this very large item, so we've got both the general fund and the housing revenue account. We'll have a debate on the general fund before our debate on the housing revenue account, just so that we split those up. All right. I'd like to invite Councillor Simon Smith to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. This council was faced with a forecast 11.5 million budget deficit, and today we're looking at a budget that is balanced. And it's a budget that will be invested in Cambridge Labour's progressive social, economic and environmental ambitions for residents. It's a remarkable achievement. It's the culmination of 5 years of planning and investment and change led by this Labour Council and delivered by council officers. And I wish to thank every single member of staff and member of the Labour group, past and present, for their community leadership and foresight when making the big and difficult decisions. Budget making is a year-round and challenging process, and I've likened it to being given a supermarket trolley with broken wheels and then told to push it in a straight line. It's a good metaphor, because a straight line is the council's statutory duty to balance the budget over the medium-term finance strategy period, but steered by best value, another statutory duty. And the wheels represent downward pressure on income from government, below service sector inflation increases in the council's core spending power, downward pressure on rents on retail investment properties and revenues and competition in bereavement services, upward pressure on costs through government's requirements for new services and standards, so introducing renters' rights and waste food collections this year, and upward pressure on budgets due to rising labour costs and higher than inflation increases in goods and services. And these are all unavoidable external pressures, and they all need to be met alongside our internal pressures, the capital assets which are required to deliver existing and new services and responding to ever-changing societal and environmental needs. And this requires a council to make every pound work harder through ever more effective working practices and innovations in finance and governance. And through this budget, this Labour Council has the sustainable financial means to realise our progressive vision for One Cambridge, Fair for All, and our pledges. And I'll give you a few examples of how we're fulfilling those pledges. So protect and enhance services. Shared waste service is 99.9% bin collection rate. Shared planning service, an early adopter of AI, winner of the Royal Town Planning Institute Planning Authority of the Year. Benefit and council tax relief, all claims processed on average in 2 working days. These are the hallmarks of an effective, efficient council. And supporting residents in need and preventing homelessness. This is core to our values. So discretionary tax relief provides £9 million of relief to over 9,000 households in receipt and benefits. It's our biggest contribution to the rising costs that people are facing. And discretionary housing payments, an indispensable support last year for 357 families impacted by well-formed reforms and moving out of temporary accommodation into permanent homes. And our strategic partnerships, which, with the voluntary and community sector, which provide 3-year unrestricted funding for these anchor voluntary organisations who support community hubs and provide benefits, advice and debt counselling. And tackling the climate emergency, reducing climate change emissions and improving air quality through smoke control areas and introducing the most progressive local plan policies for sustainable development, a really significant contribution to mitigating the climate change and our nature crisis. And then it comes to tackling biodiversity and emergency. Logan's Meadow, new nature reserve, an urban forest project, bathing water designation that requires Anglian Water to monitor and improve quality of the River Cam, and the planned restoration of the steep streams. So building council houses, and this is really a significant contribution that the General Fund makes to the programme. And those contributions have been made through secured land acquisition and development finance loans. And these power up a building programme, which has made us into a credible bidder for the £96 million strategic partnership grant from Homes England. And I'll let Jerry talk about what we're going to do with that later. And then we're going to talk about the community facilities. So in Abbey Ward, a new 3G pitch has been opened. New community rooms for Abbey people, and the library and nursery under construction. And of course, we just recently built, completed and opened the Cherry Hinton Hub, community rooms and library. This trolley is in good hands. And I recommend this budget for the council's recommendation to full council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Okay, so we'll do the general fund debate now before we then move on to the HRA. So are there comments and questions from Cabinet members? Councillor Wade.
Yes, thank you to Councillor Smith. Could I just ask, just to reassure residents in the wider context of media stories of other local authorities, the current financial situation that many find themselves in, how confident are you as to the sustainability of our finances? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, as you see from the medium-term finance strategy forecast, we only have to make small amount of net savings over that 5-year period to maintain a balanced budget. And given the scale of the reductions in expenditure that we've dealt with so far, these will be readily, they'll be easily attained as we continue to improve the delivery of our services. So we're on solid, sound footings, financial footings, and they're so sound that this year we've been able to put more funding back into frontline services and responding positively to the themes that were identified in the budget consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Smart.
So thanks for the report, Simon. So one question that I've got is, there are councils around the country who are not doing so well and some are going bust. So how is it that we're managing to do so well? It seems to me we are doing very well. We have problems, we've rectified them, we've got a balanced budget. I mean, it's great stuff, but it'd be good to know a bit more about that, about why we are where we are.
I think councils have faced each of those 4 wheels of the trolley. They're all creating significant pressures on budgets, and it requires a huge amount of effort to deal with them and to absorb them. So I can see how easily a council can get into financial trouble, and some have tried to borrow money and invest in real estate in order to generate revenue to support services. And in a number of cases, that's gone they've become unstuck with that, not able now to service the debts and not be able to generate the rents from the properties they've invested in. And so it's handed in a financial disaster. So others have faced unexpected spending pressures as well. So it's really requires year-round focus on making sure your budgets are going to balance and controlling your costs. And that's what this council has been doing for years.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and that's what allows us to provide the high-quality frontline services that we do and continue to do that. Councillor Thornborough.
Well, I'd like to thank you for all your work that you've put into this, Simon, in holding us to account last year for the hard work we did considering budgets and where we are this year, as you've really well put out. But I also thank you for mentioning that the planning service has won the top award in the whole country, the Royal Town Planning Institute Award. So they were recognised as the most outstanding planning service. The planning service is unlike any other planning service in the country, where the budget it is dealing with is helping to really focus on the great investment that we've got in this area. And one thing we haven't got a figure for is how the new homes, the new places for jobs is actually providing direct facilities for the £30 million that goes from this area into the UK economy. And the shared planning service has dealt with challenge after challenge, and it is as you said, it is leading in the whole country. It is not just dealing with planning applications, it is dealing with national infrastructure projects. It is helping to deliver 40% affordable homes across the board in Cambridge and South Cambridgeshire. And award-winning for community buildings, for forms of construction, for sustainability, for craftsmanship, and for heritage as well. And that, it will go, and it is that any changes that come forward now, the planning we might consider for the planning service, I think we must uphold the standards that we have reached for the planning service, and we will not accept anything that will affect the really great delivery of places and spaces going forward in the future. We have set a standard within this planning service, and we will not accept anything lower. And that means the way it runs the service, the way it works with their own people, the way it works with communities, and the way it balances the budget is exceptional, and we will not accept anything less than that going forward in the future.
Councillor Thornborough. Anyone else with any comments or questions in relation to their portfolio? Councillor Anna Smith.
I think Councillor Moore might have just been there before me, but I don't mind. So I won't take ages, because I think we'll all want to wax lyrical about our portfolios, and I'll try and kind of contain that. But there are two things I wanted to reflect on. First of all, the way that, and I think this is the absolute right way for us to do our budgets. We focus on the budget lines in this paper, so we look at those new things that are coming through. But actually, it's just to really remind all of us that a lot of the stuff that we do in our council work is therefore not on those obvious budget lines. And that's something I'm very aware of in my own portfolio particularly. And there's so much, we've talked about community grants, but there's so much that just happens day after day after day in our community centres, in our work with our communities. We have thousands of visits to our community centres. We've talked about building the new ones, but we've also got fantastic things happening in the ones that exist already. We run holiday lunch clubs, which are free. We run free activities in the summer. We support so many partner charities. We work on food justice. We work to support those charities working with victims of domestic abuse. There's so much that happens regularly, and I know that we could all talk about those things in our portfolios as well, and I just wanted really to remind us all of that there is so much happening that you don't see in those big budget lines. And I think the other thing I wanted to reflect on, so I am a member of the Local Government Association Children and Young People's Board, and we were talking the other week about the work that can be done to support vulnerable children. Now, in many ways, that's seen as a kind of statutory county council function. But what was really clear as we talked about that and the work that's being done at the moment around this is how important all of those wraparound services are, and the kind of things that we do as a district council that supports families, that ensures that people, help ensure that people have enough to eat, that help ensures people have healthy lifestyles, have activities for them, that have all of that support. Those things are just as important as where the statutory services kick in. And I think Councillor Thornborough has been thinking forward towards the future. And I think my point towards the future would be, as we move towards a unitary authority, that we do everything we possibly can to protect those services that are not statutory, but which are absolutely vital in protecting the most vulnerable people in our communities. And there's a lot that this budget supports that allows those things to happen. So I just wanted to take that moment to reflect on that, and also to thank all the brilliant people within our communities team who do so much to support all of our communities.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Councillor Moore?
Thank you. So Cambridge City and Cambridge City Council, we've just been awarded as an A-list city by the Carbon Disclosure Project for the third year running, which is a fantastic achievement for all of the work that officers have been doing to cut our carbon emissions, but also adapt to climate changes that's here, and to the further climate change residents of Cambridge will be experiencing in the future. And I'm really pleased that as part of this budget, we've got really big investment, over £6.5 million, with possibly more to be come in the future on our fleet. Now, not only will that keep our vital services to residents running, things like collecting our waste and recycling, keeping the streets and open spaces teams moving about the city, but also we will be investing in modern, where available, electric vehicles. So not only providing those services, but cutting our carbon emissions while we do it, and also cutting air pollution from our vehicles while we do it. So this is a really positive step forward, and I'm very happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Simon Smith, you'd like to respond?
Just to reflect on that, and I just want to make people aware of the big multiplier impact that the council has. So Councillor Thornborough was talking eloquently about the planning service. Across South Cambs and Cambridge, about 2,000 homes are built every year. The total value of that stock, just the housing element of what's delivered, is worth £600 million a year. This is an extraordinary amount of investment that the council is steering and managing across our shared planning area. The budget doesn't pick up the things that we do in our community leadership role, like the Cambridge City Centre heat network. And again, we lead that, and we're working towards bringing in a huge sum of money so that the heritage buildings can be decarbonised, and also the Parkside pool. And when it comes to the locks, there's the council leading a partnership, lending its professional support to the Camp Conservators, bringing forward the investment that will repair them and secure the river. And then there's Greater Cambridge Impact. We made a £1 million seed investment. It's generated to date another 5 million from social enterprise investors with the objective of supporting people who are the most vulnerable people in our society, to give them better life chances so they're not living a life in poverty and deprivation. And we look forward to seeing those investments brought forward. And I think the rest of the social enterprise investment community is looking and watching that, because this is going to be a model I think others will want to follow and we will want to build on. So Councillor Anna Smith is correct. We're just looking here at the margins, the moments of change in this budget, and we mustn't overlook the fact that there's all of this collective effort going towards making Cambridge a better place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Okay, Councillor Porrer, as the chair of the Performance Assets and Strategy Overview and Scrutiny Committee, would you like to comment on this?
Thank you very much, Chair. For the public record, these comments have been shared already with Councillor Smith and colleagues. But when this came to scrutiny, we had a few recommendations for Cabinet. Firstly was just noting the Folk Festival bid and asking Cabinet to keep an eye on that to make sure it's under constant review, because there was some concern that that might not be sufficient, depending on obviously what happens over the summer. Secondly, we talked about the consultation, and I think it was accepted by everyone that there was the age data perhaps wasn't as representative as we hoped. I think Councillor Smith agreed that that would be something we'd consider when that comes forward next year. We asked as well for some additional information which has been provided in the new papers, which we're grateful for. That related to the bid on the crematorium, the car park equipment bid, the playground bid, the weeds and herbicide management bid, Cowley Road depot, and they've all been provided in the papers, and I haven't had any further feedback. And we did also ask us an update on the Civic Quarter £1 million, which has been provided separately to members, so that wasn't an action for Cabinet. But I think from the point of view of scrutiny, we did obviously note everything there and urge, I think, that yourselves will keep a close eye on this, reviewing it very regularly, particularly around the Folk Festival, and these bids, to make sure that the savings are coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you to the Scrutiny Committee for very detailed, helpful comments. As you can see, that is reflected in the changes that have been made since that meeting to the paper, and we've provided some additional information. On the Folk Festival specifically, glad to see that ticket sales are going well. The first tranche of tickets all sold out, which is fantastic. Moved on to the second tranche of tickets now. We've got some great headliners, so hopefully that will go well, but you're absolutely right. We need to be on top of it to make sure that we can deliver a really, really good Folk Festival this year and then move on successfully into the future. So thank you very much, Councillor Porrer. Councillor Bick, as leader of the... Councillor Young, I should ask first. Did you have any comments in relation to the budget?
Thank you, but the Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee did not consider the budget, so I can give you lots of opinions, but they wouldn't be part of the scrutiny process. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Bick, then, as leader of the opposition.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to echo the comments of thanks to the finance officers for the preparation of all of this. It's a shame that Jodie's not here to hear that, but we'll no doubt say it again at full council. And just to note that, quite appreciating all your speeches to each other, that there are a few other perspectives on the budget, which I'm not going to offer you today, but obviously those will come at full council. I had 4 questions, which I think probably would not get covered at full council, but I think are significant and worthwhile questions to raise with you today. The first of those is about the savings targets that the council has been working to over the last few years, which look to be significantly reduced now. What I would be grateful of is a description from Councillor Smith about the approach to the balance of the savings targets that he has in mind is there a particular process to achieve those? Or is it a question of looking for opportunities or a sort of salami slice that we should look forward to in future years?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vick. Councillor Simon-Smith.
Yes. So, Councillor Bick, you might have noticed there's local government reform coming along, and we have 2 years ahead of us. So we've got another budget-making process to go through. You've seen the savings target for 27, 28 and 28, 29. They are fairly de minimis, but that doesn't mean we won't be continuing to promote service reform to some degree. But I think the effort, the priority now needs to be on pulling together all the data and information with the other local authorities so that we're getting ready for local government reform. That's where the next big round of change is going to occur. It's going to take, you'll see the business plan, it's going to take quite a substantial amount of investment, but the savings will be returned within, I think it was a five-year programme. So I think it's probably going to be better to focus on that much bigger fish than it is to continue to make sort of relatively minor savings at this particular point.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Vick.
Thank you. The second question was about the two items relating to the crematorium. So I look back at the last few budgets and I only got through 3 of those, but in 2023 the council decided to accept a reduction in income from the crematorium of 200,000. In 2024, it agreed to accept another reduction in income from the crematorium of 650,000 ongoing. Last year it accepted a reduction for 1 year only of 150,000. And this year, the budget is containing a proposal to accept a further 300,000 reduction in income from the crematorium, together accumulating to something over £1 million. I raise this particular single item because that is a lot of money, and a lot of money originating from one facility that we have. It is said in the increased information that's been put into the BSR that we are operating, as I think many of us are aware, in an increasingly competitive environment for crematoriums of mixed economy of public and private providers, and we are clearly losing some ground in that. And there is a proposal to spend or allocate another £1 million of capital spending to the crematorium, and there is, and I won't go into detail, there is in pink papers proposals to increase fees at the crematorium by significantly above inflation, despite the fact that the report on the drop in income says that, that one of the problems about the market we're facing is that it's offering lower cost provision. So I just wanted to say, with this talk here of a plan being drafted for the business plan being drafted for the crematorium, would it be a commitment that could be made that that the £1 million provision that's been made for capital would be held back until we can all see what is in that plan and whether the capital proposal actually addresses it? Because putting more capital into something that isn't trying to fix this, trying to stem this problem of lost income is an important thing.
Is that the question? Sorry, it's been a very, very long question.
I think it's an important question.
It is important.
It's an important question, and I think that it would be well for the council that it was listened to. It is said that the crematorium is still making a profit for us in some way. I'm not sure that I have actually seen that figure, which taking account of allocations from the corporate hub for services coming outside themselves, or the cost of capital, and I think that would be useful to see that as well, please.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Simon Smith. You want to go?
Well, thank you for your question, Councillor Vick. It is a problem child, the crematorium and the bereavement services. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We have gone from a situation where we were virtually a monopoly provider, and in recent years we've had 2 new crematorium come on stream within our catchment area, and they have captured a slice of our service. There's also now an online offer for cremations, and that too has impacted substantially on our bereavement services. So this is, I think the other thing as well is that there's been changes in demand. I think this is probably reflecting cost of living crisis and so on, as that the public just aren't spending as much money on bereavement services as they have in the past. Well, I agree. We've the income that's generated by the crematorium services has fallen dramatically. We're still looking forward to £550,000 net revenue from the service for the forthcoming financial year. I'm very happy to give you details about the proposed spend on the crematorium, but you'll see in the budget line these are actually essential and immediate investments that are required to secure the fabric, health and safety, and other reasons which make it a compelling case for making the investment. And these have been deferred for some time, so the situation's getting worse, and we need to act on it. During all of this time, we've recently had a receipt, I think from Highways England, for compensation as a result of the A14 highway works. So it hasn't all been lost, but what we're trying to do is to ensure the continuity of the service and revenues that it can generate. But I agree with you. We will look forward to seeing the details action plan arising from the business planning process, which is currently in train. So thank you. It's a good question, and I welcome it, and I agree with your challenge.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. And then the third question is about commercial property, and it relates to the capital strategy. There are a number of things here, but noting that the Lion Yard holding that we have is subject to a reduction, reflecting, I think, the fluctuating fortunes of the retail sector. There is, I think, recognised in general a need for the council to shift its focus amongst its commercial investments to make sure that we optimise them. We rely on the income from them, a very large proportion of what we do. So a response over time would be expected. I note that the strategy for funding new operational capital is to leave us putting more emphasis on capital receipts, meaning presumably that when we're selling capital, which could be commercial property, then that gets moved and invested in operational capital, which may not generate income because it's like play equipment or such like. And then I think I'm aware that there are restrictions in our ability to borrow to buy commercial property to invest for income. So all of that together makes me a little concerned about what actually is happening in our commercial property portfolio, in the sense that we probably would want to shift it around to optimise the income, but there seems to be some jeopardy in doing so because we'll need some of that as capital receipts to fund other things, and we won't be able to borrow probably to buy replacement properties. So just ask whether it isn't possibly time to review again the commercial property strategy, given that it is a really fast-moving change that we're operating within, given a lot of our property is retail, and the city is changing in its profile of what commercial property needs.
Thank you. Councillor
Okay.
Smith.
Well, thank you, Councillor Vick. This is my specialist subject, so I can talk quite at length about this. So, obviously, commercial property investment is very, very long term, and it's not the sort of asset that you move around. And as you pointed out, we're now very restricted in investing in property. And as I was just saying a few minutes ago, this is where a lot of local councils have come unstuck by excessive investment in shopping centres and so on that have gone, those investments gone a bit sour. And fortunately, we didn't do that. But along the way, we are taking opportunities to enhance the portfolio. And the team are doing a great job with that. So we have, obviously the big example was the redevelopment of Park Street car park with the Park Hotel on top. There was the £85 million loan at what now looks like a ridiculously low rate of interest, that the income from that development is not just covering the interest payments, but also the capital repayments as well, and delivering us a surplus that we can put into services. So swings and roundabouts, we're losing on some and winning on others. There is a recurring opportunity which comes when long leaseholders want to re-gear their leases, extend them to, say, 150 or 250 years, because that's what's required by the investment market when they redevelop on our freehold land. And that gives us the opportunity to gain or increase the ground rent from the enhanced income from these redevelopment schemes, and in some cases take a capital receipt at the same time. So these are the things that are happening within the commercial property portfolio. See what are the receipts that may happen when the Civic Quarter scheme goes ahead would be the disposal of Mandela House, for example. So at the moment, just in the process of being commissioned is a 30-year strategic review of our assets, because what we need to know is what are going to be the capital obligations, implications of holding these properties over the longer term, and that will help inform our stroke investment disposal strategy. So that's what we're doing with the commercial property assets, and just like the budget, we're in very good hands.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Bickland.
For the last question, thank you. It was a much simpler question, I think, about the item about the housing benefits subsidy, which in fact is two items again. One is recognising some extra cost, and the other is trying to spend a little bit to stem that. The explanations about this are really quite scant on here, and it's quite a lot of money, and I just wondered whether we could have an explanation of what this actually is and why it suddenly arises at quite a high level, like 636,000. There's something that's happened in regulations or something. Is it a discretionary cost that we're paying there, or is it a statutory thing? And exactly how it's going to be stemmed.
Thank you.
So, if there's an officer present that can answer that technical question, anybody? No.
I'm not the most technically competent on this one. What I do know is it is an obligation. I don't know if Matthew is able to give any more detail. It's not a choice that we're paying this. It's a regulatory requirement. And if I can't get anything from Matthew on this and it's not his area of expertise, we will come back to you. And apologies once again from Jodie, who can't actually talk without coughing at the moment. So.
I think the main takeaway, Councillor Dick, is that we are promoting what amounts to an invest to save bid through the budget, so that we can support the homelessness charities, from which, because of regulations, we can't reclaim the housing subsidy to help them to become registered providers. It's going to be a difficult challenge, but I think it's incumbent on us to make the effort, because it would be very, very difficult if, say, the unitary authority is in a position where it needs to make savings, that it would stop affording this. We need to get these homelessness charities in a good place, so the full benefits can be reclaimed. I think it's quite an urgent matter, and which is why we brought this proposal forward. But as Jane says, we'll get those technical advice back to you.
Thank you. And Matthew, did you have anything further to add on the nature of the accounting for this?
It's simply the case that we can't reclaim a housing benefit subsidy for those people who are housed with these charities. That's always been the case. I think this budget setting report just made that more visible to members. It's always been an issue, and obviously an issue we're now trying to address.
Thank you, Matthew. Yes, so it's an area where, because of our new ways of looking at the budget, we're exposing some of these areas where actually we could be doing better, and so that's helping us to then identify potential solutions. All right, sorry, Councillor Nesta, you had your hand up quite a while back and made your way.
Thank you very much. I just want to make a comment, perhaps two quick comments in relation to what had been said, not before but earlier on. And like, no matter what political affiliation we have, I think we're very fortunate not having to make a choice, for example, between culture, like, for example, where we invest our money, and, for example, of youth. And I just wanted to highlight the sort of the new strategy for reducing youth offending and employing and boosting employability for young people. And I think we're just very, very fortunate to have a good budget and good financial sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nesta. Okay, Councillor Clough, thank you for waiting patiently. Would you like to ask for your question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, I would like to draw the Cabinet's attention to pages 211 and 293 of this meeting's agenda pack, which talk about the allocation of a further 1 million from the general reserves to the Civic Water Development Project for, I quote, funding revenue costs associated with temporary closure of the Scorn Exchange. I also had a meeting this morning with the Section 151 officer, arising from my questions about this about the reserves at the PAS committee. It is now confirmed that both this additional 1 million and the 4 million REBA stage 2 and 3 costs are not in the current 92.3 million capital costs for this project. So we are in fact looking at 92.3 plus 5 equals 97.3 current total projected cash out of the council for the Civic Quarter project. Is 97.3 a number that the Cabinet agrees is correct? And also, how confident is the Cabinet of holding the final cash hit to the council by project handover at this number? Or is there a real risk that costs may spiral significantly beyond 100 million? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clough. As you noted, what's actually in these papers is the additional 1 million to the Civic Quarter reserve at this stage. But Councillor Simon Smith, would you like to provide some further comments?
Yes. So that is you're correct. That's about the number that we're currently looking at. We're going through a process. My request, we've set up the strategic steering group, which you attended. And one of the key objectives, actually, of that steering group is to review all the costs and identify, through value engineering, the way in which we may be able to make savings from that number. We'll be looking to enter into a fixed price contract. So we mitigate the risk of cost overruns, and we'll be looking at, and this is what the financing arrangements as well, which are obviously critical to the costs. And those arrangements will be based on some level of debt, and of course we'll only borrow where we can service that debt from commercial income arising from the scheme. So that's the challenge that we have, and it's will be brought back to Cabinet and full council in September, October this year, and that's when members will have the opportunity to make a final decision as to whether or not to go ahead with the scheme.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. And as well as making sure that we are getting best possible value for money, we are proud to be investing in these key public assets. We're not disposing of them. We're not going to do another Shire Hall. We're investing in our publicly owned buildings and spaces. And that is something that we're proud to be doing. Okay, thank you very much for that debate. Councillor Moore, did you want to come in?
Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with your previous comment. And I just wanted to note that this is our first budget in the new governance structure of the Cabinet, and there was lots of concern about the new structure, that it was a power grab, and all sorts of things were said. But I'd just like to note how positive I feel it is that we have the chair of the Performance, Assets and Strategies Overview and Scrutiny Committee, who the committee have been able to feed back, and that feedback has been noted and has impacted the budget, and councillors have been able to get more information before it goes. So I just wanted to note that personally I feel it's a really positive change that we've made, and we can see it today from all councillors of all parties being able to input. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moore. Councillor Wade?
Thank you, Chair. Just to make another positive comment, because I think we've shown here and we've demonstrated that we have, as Councillor Thornborough said, demonstrated a high standard and gone above that high standard. And I think we've all spoken about the extras that we've been able to bring to our community as it is, and the ways that we're trying to future-proof this city for everybody. And I just think it's a shame sometimes that comments are made with regards to perhaps headlines for tomorrow's Independent regarding figures that aren't particularly relevant at this stage. And we lose in that for all the really good work that officers and this council do to help the residents of Cambridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Councillor Smart?
Thanks, Chair. So I was looking at you just now about the crematorium one, because I felt that Councillor Bick was going quite close to talking about figures. I know he didn't actually say any figures, but it's a very sensitive area, that is, both in terms of what the crematorium does, in terms of the work it does, but also in terms of the financial model that it works to, and to make sure it succeeds. But it wasn't particularly what I wanted to speak, but as I have a chance now, I'll just add to what Councillor Smith has said. So when a loved one passes away, it can be very difficult for the family and very expensive to use burial or crematorium services. And the service the council provides is a very important and sensitive service. I've been there and seen the work they do myself, very impressed by it. And just coming back to the point I just made, it's a very, very competitive market out there now for those services, and we have to work within that and provide a service that both makes money for the council, but also provides a service that's affordable to people to be able to use. And we do have ways of making that work for people that don't have so much money. So just to say that on the question, I mean, Councillor Bick said a bit and asked a couple of questions as well. The questions I heard were about whether the crematorium makes money, so it does make a profit for the council. And also that with regard to the repairs that are in the budget, the £1 million approx repairs to the buildings and structure of it all is essential work. Some of it's been put off a bit, and we can't really carry on without doing that work. And anyway, whatever we plan to do in the future, and I mean whatever we plan to do, those works will have to be done. And so I can only recommend to Cabinet that we do go ahead with those works and continue to have a viable and useful service for our residents and other people that live outside the city. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's been a really helpful debate. We'll now move to the HRA element of this item. Councillor Jerry Bird, would you like to give an introduction to this?
Thank you, Chair. Lovely. Well, good evening, everyone. I'd just like, before I start, just to wish Jody well, because he's done some fantastic work on our budget this year. I will outline the key elements of the housing revenue account budget for 26-27, including updates to the 30-year business plan, major policy changes affecting the HRA, and financial implications for our housing stock, tenants and investment plans. The past couple of years have been significant cost pressures within the HRA because of increase in regulations, cost of inflation and high interest rates. It has therefore been necessary to take a different approach to the budget setting this year, considering what is realistically needed, make sure we continue to deliver safe, affordable and sustainable homes for Cambridge in the years to come. We are proud to have received a C2 grading from the regulator of social housing last summer, recognising our strong performance against the consumer standards. We have worked with external consultants to rebase the HRA budget and the 30-year business plan, resulting in a significant ongoing investment plan for the future. This includes an extra 1.7 million per year on our housing repair service, just under half of which is all allocated to deal with damp, condensation and mould. We will also invest around 0.5 million per year on increasing the size of our housing management teams and making the best use of technology to enhance tenants' experience. This investment will mostly be funded through the government's new rent statement, which will see rents increase by CPI plus 1% for at least the next 5 years. This means that the rents will increase by 4.8% from this April. As part of this settlement, from April 27, we will start a programme on rent convergence, which means that tenants who currently pay less than social rent will see their rent increase to the correct level over time, starting with an additional £1 per week in 27-28. Increasing rents is always a difficult decision. We are mindful of the financial pressures facing our tenants. However, this is necessary to make rents fairer across all our homes and to continue to invest in high quality housing within the city. In addition, around 65% of our tenants receive some support with their housing costs, and the majority of those will see the full amount of any increase covered through their increased housing benefit or universal credit. The HRA budget also sets out our plans to invest nearly 10 million in capital expenditure over the next 10 years. This will see improvements in our existing housing stock, including energy efficient works, which will reduce energy bills for our tenants. This will also deliver over 1,300 new homes in the city, subject to securing a strategic partnership with Homes England, with a decision on this expected later this year. With the capital programme comes a need for significant new borrowing of almost 5 million over the next 10 years. Our external consultants have looked closely at this and have concluded that this is affordable. Abate does come with inherent risks, and the situation will be kept under careful review as the programme processes. I would like to take this opportunity to thank members of the Housing Advisory Board, including our committed tenant and leaseholder reps. And I have a little piece that they've asked me to read out, if that's all right, Chair. At the meeting of the Housing Advisory Board held on the 2nd of February 2026, the board received a presentation about the HRA budget proposal. After a lengthy discussion, the majority of the board members agreed the following: that the Housing Advisory Board welcomes and supports the HRA budget proposals. We particularly endorse the budget bids, which represents an improved service for tenants and leaseholders. Board members also recognise the current financial pressures and thanks officers for putting together a balanced budget. So which now I recommend to the Cabinet, the budget.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bird. Okay. Councillor Thornborough.
Can we just have a short break at some point soon, do you think?
I was hoping we might finish the meeting in time to not need a break, but we'll see. If it does go on a bit longer, then yes, we can. Okay, Councillor Smart.
Let's report, Jerry. So why are these bids needed now and not last year? That's my question.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Last year, the Council took deliberate action to strengthen frontline housing delivery where it matters most for tenants. The subsequent compliant C2 grading confirms that approach is working. This year builds on that position using the rebased 30-year HRA business plan and clean operations data to align the budgets with the real cost of compliance, inflation and regulation, rather than allowing pressures to emerge later as overspends.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. Councillor Wade?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bird. On page 345, I believe, the 750,000 for the extra money for the damp and condensation and mould. Does this mean that the service is failing?
Thank you, Councillor Wade. No, it reflects a step change in regulatory expectations following Abwell's law. The compliance C2 grading confirms the council is doing what it needs to do. This investment builds on the compliance by ensuring the council can respond faster, investigate more thoroughly and intervene early in more complex cases.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Wade, did you have another question?
Yes, please. Can I just come back to that? Why is then the damp, mould and work being delivered by a third-party provider? Thank you.
Thank you. Damp condensation and mould cases now require specialist expertise and rapid mobilisation to meet statutory timescales. Using third-party providers allows us the capacity to be accessed quickly while the council retains oversight and assurance and accountability.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Smart?
Yeah, it's not so much a question, Councillor, but just want to, if I'm saying the wrong thing, you tell me, but it's always a difficult area, rents, and you know that yourself because you're a council tenant yourself. But, I mean, it seems to me that the way it runs is that although council tenants pay rent, they're part of the whole deal. They pay rent, we run the service so that we can continue to rent properties both to them and to others when we build new council houses. And without those rents, we couldn't do that, and we have to run a viable service. And so when we do put rents up, that's so that we can get the income to do this, run the service. And I've just looked it up online. I mean, I might be wrong, but it looks to me like it's saying a 3-bedroom council property is about £145 a week. A private sector property at 3 beds would be about £450 to £520. So that means the private sector is about 300% more expensive than a council property. And it seems to me that that's a significant difference, that our properties are so much more affordable for people than the private sector, the rest of it basically, that lots of people have to struggle to pay rents in. And then we do help with that, but essentially we're talking about the council rents here. So I'm just saying, we are putting the rents up. We do put the rents up, usually every year, but there's a reason for that. We have to run a viable service, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a true statement of fact.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Yes, it is. I know it's hard for tenants. I hate putting the rents up. But, that's life. We've got to do it. And yes, it helps us run our services so they have safe and secure homes. I've tried before to keep it as low as possible. But sadly, we can't do that anymore. So we've got to follow the line so we can carry on doing what we want to do for our tenants. But you're very right. Thank you.
Councillor Wade, did you have a further?
Yes, just to build on what Councillor Smart has said, and I've referred a lot to the Shelter report that is out there, and they talk all the time, Councillor Bird, as you're probably aware, of they highlight, in fact, social or council housing because of the reassurance that it gives to the tenants. And as Councillor Smart has pointed out, the comfort that comes from that, although that we do have to increase our rents, if you look at that report in detail, it talks about the need for more council or social housing simply because of the reassurance and the security people feel renting in that sector. And yes, the rents are out of proportion, I would say, for private housing compared to our housing that we provide. I think you find that reflects in your statement today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Porro, would you like to comment on this?
Thank you very much, Chair. So the Scrutiny Committee, Performance, Assets and Strategy had a look through the housing revenue account, as Councillor Bird knows. And again, I've already fed back our comments, but just for the public record. We had some questions about convergence, which has obviously slightly been overtaken by events, just looking at the minimum and maximum amounts, but I think that will be for a future year now. Scrutiny highlighted some concerns around the savings targets for the bad debt reduction, void improvements and software. No action for Cabinet now other than to please keep an eye on those, because obviously if they don't deliver as anticipated, then obviously we will need to be looking at how that affects the budget going forward, not just in a year, but probably sooner than that, just because obviously with these kind of assumptions, we're never quite sure. Though I think Samantha Shimon, the Housing Officer, did explain a little bit about the bad debt, why we have a reasonable confidence that that will be a robust figure. We obviously noted concerns about the tight deadlines for government decisions, which have slightly overtaken us because obviously convergence and things have come forward. We've obviously seen the new HRA run on the new figures. No members have come back to me with concerns, but I think we did note, as Councillor Bird said, there is an increased risk this year because of the borrowing. That's slightly more now because the convergence has been delayed. And I think we also noted, obviously, with the strategic partnerships with Homes England, there's a risk there. And again, the message was very much for Cabinet to be keeping a very close eye on this, please. Just not just a year from now, but ongoing to make sure, which I'm sure, I would hope Cabinet would agree with and be doing anyway. We also, as for the General Fund, asked for a little bit more information about some of the larger bids, just so we were clearer about not just why they were needed, but what they were actually going to do. And I'm pleased to say that those have been received and are in the published papers. So that was the damp, condensation and mould, the housing disrepair, the void repair costs and the housing management teams. So I think Scrutiny are grateful that you've included that extra information. I hope in future we can continue to do that. Just obviously for members, we can ask officers, but for the public, it's important to be able to see kind of how we're coming forward. But we do appreciate this is the first year of the sort of new budget setting, so we hope that will be a lesson for the future. I think that's everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those comments. Councillor Bird, do you want to respond to them?
Thank you, Councillor Porro. And yes, I did note that you wanted the changes on the damp, condensation and mould and everything. And thank you for that, because it does help. So we get it all right straight away. And thank you for your help with the Housing Advisory Board coming along. And also for your committee, for the work you've done on that and with the budget. That's really helped.
Thank you, Councillor Bird.
And I'd just add, thank you for the comments on obviously keeping a close eye on making sure we're meeting our savings targets, as well as keeping an eye on borrowing. That borrowing comes partly from the fact that we have a very ambitious house building programme, so we're proud to be doing that, but nevertheless we therefore need to keep an eye on the risk that comes with it. So thank you for helping us to do that. Councillor Bigg, as Leader of the Opposition, did you have any comments on this?
Lots of comments, but they'll all wait to full council, Chair. Thank you.
Look forward to them. Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Bird, anything final before we wrap this up?
Just really to say thank you to everybody, all the officers for all their help. And thank you to Ben Binns for all the work he's doing on our developments for our new council homes, because that's another big important thing. And we want to build, don't we? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bird. Okay, so we've now got the recommendations for all of the budget items that we've discussed. So that's both the General Fund and the HRA. So they're on pages 209 to 213. I won't read them all out, but there are several headings there if you want to look at them. So there's one on council tax, housing rents and charges, revenue budgets, capital budgets, risks and reserves, medium-term financial strategy, capital and treasury management strategy. Then there's one entitled Other, and then there's section 25 report as well. So there's a lot in there. I feel we've had some good discussion today. Are we happy to agree those recommendations and to recommend this report to the full council? Yes, thank you very much. Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much for a good debate and have a good evening.